We're going to move on to capacity and anticipated demand, timelines, and speed to clinic. With I think control comes in here a lot too. So Mitch, my first question is for you. Let's talk speed to clinic. How does your need for speed to clinic impact, or how did it impact Kriya's decision to build your facility?
Yeah, so when we started Kriya, CMC and supply was definitely going to be the critical path activity. So it certainly supported the decision to build internally and move quickly. The overall industry was quite constrained at the time. There was very little innovation in the industry, and so if you think about trying to really drive down cost of goods, which was part of our mission, and the timeline by which we were trying to do it, there really was probably not an external channel that would have achieved that. So it was a big part of our decision to internalize, along with, as I said earlier, critical mass being a big part of it, in cost and control.
Okay. Will, specifically for you, now when it comes to capacity and anticipated demand, what were some of the things that Kite accomplished with its facility that are now really considered best practices for you? Maybe even share, if you can, some of the lessons learned around capacity and meeting anticipated demand as a result of having built your facilities.
Yeah. So let's start with the first part, right? So the considerations or the interesting experiences that we had were, started with the payer model, right? Since it is an autologous therapy that is based on the manipulation of a patient's own cells on tissue, it costs money. It's a cost-intensive type of process. With more patients, you drive the cost down a little bit, but lastly, you still need to operate your facility. You need to have, your operators, your personnel available, your staff available. You need to manage all this. You need to have the full breadth of a biopharmaceutical operation to support, right? All the way from R&D through, the tech ops or, part, as well as commercial, everything. Everybody is part of that overhead. So as we went and built the capacity and looked at our demand forecast, right? We had to learn about things like, okay, what are health insurance carriers able to pay, not just in the continental US, that's where we started, but also in Europe and rest of the world, everywhere, right? Who do we negotiate with, and where do we get that clarity? Which hospitals do we need to work with, and can we leverage their partnership to have visibility and clarity around demand, to be reasonably accurate in our forecasting, right? That drove a lot of our decisions, and we learned a lot of lessons. So forecasting started, way out of the actual achievable part, and we had to trim that down. But we also had to work through having more access, having more physicians, right? In the oncology space, it is difficult to break in with a new therapy and become really a name brand, if you want, right? Due to the fact that cancer patients have a different type of journey ahead of them than somebody with like any other type of disease. Lastly, it's also the physicians, right? The treating physicians, the community oncologists, as well as the cancer centers we work with. There's a gap of communication between those. There is a certain degree of hesitancy to pass a patient from a community to a cancer center. So we had these difficulties to overcome. We had the payer question resolved itself over the years of our journey, commercializing the product with getting coverage, even in the US, to pay for those therapies was a huge breakthrough. And then, yeah, those were the drivers really for capacity, design as well as implementation. The other thing that we did is have a step-up approach. So building a facility or having a facility shell available, and then starting to increase, right, the manufacturing footprint with a certain degree of flexibility to meet fluctuations in demand was also a really good lesson learned for us. Where we're able to absorb pretty much an entire patient population at this point across our capacity, and we don't really foresee any type of stockout scenario where we wouldn't be able to meet that demand, even with our most optimistic forecasts at this point in the new markets.